Yeah, so I'm Shannon Leslie. I'm at the National Snow and Ice Data Center. We're one of the ESDA's DACs, but I lead a team of metadata stewards or the metadata stewardship team. So we're cross organization. We have representation across all of the DACs, as well as folks like Tyler and others who have a lot of expertise in sort of or what I'll call enterprise systems and schemas. So I guess in that role, I mean, I feel like a lot of my job is to bring really a lot of the science diversity that we have across the program, and really trying to streamline a lot of our practices and tooling, so that we can start to have a more interoperable sort of metadata system and support for users.
Thank you, Shannon. Okay, blue. Metadata stewardship is blue. So remember that if you're a metadata steward, please. Amy.
Hey everyone, I'm Amy. I work at Development Seed, more sort of like a data engineer than a data user. So I work with NASA's Office of Data Science and Informatics, or ODSI. And as part of that project, we work on optimized data delivery, which basically means now that NASA has moved many of its archives to the cloud, how can we optimize delivery via, how can we make it easier to access that data now that's on the cloud? So how can we make sure that people aren't downloading files, they're just streaming the data, accessing the subsets that they need. So I'm very interested at a low level, what kinds of formats and standards can support this cloud optimized access. Like how can we maybe enforce some fixing the data itself, as opposed to sort of finding these workarounds as well. So data standards as well as API standards that can stream this data as opposed to downloading it for users. One thing I'm like really excited to talk to people about, for example, is if you go to like Earth Data Search, you will see a link to download the data. That is like one of the first things that you would maybe notice. You won't necessarily see like a tile service or some code to like stream the data in a cloud environment. So that's one thing I'm really excited to talk about. I also work with NOAA in a couple of different facets. So I'm also interested in how, talking about standards and services, how they can really empower like the same tools to be used over both NASA and NOAA data and all the other agencies represented here. Thanks.
Thanks, Amy. I think you're next, or Danny, or it doesn't matter. You don't have to go in the order I listed you.
Fair enough. So I'm Owen Littlejohns. I'm not Danny Kaufman. That's Danny Kaufman. I'm on the NASA EED3 contract. So we work with ESDIS, and I'm in particular on a thing called the transformation train. So all of the sort of enterprise services like Harmony, Giovanni, Appears, Hype, all those kind of things where we're trying to help people get at the bits of the data they want, kind of similar to what Amy was just talking about. But these sort of services are trying to serve a whole slew of different data products from different data providers with lots of different quirks and inconsistencies. And so a lot of my time is spent trying to work out how on earth we make something work with all these different disparate data sets. So I care a lot about consistency and trying to make things work nicely with each other.
Thank you, Owen. Sorry, I forgot to say that Amy's red. Amy's sort of on the data user. If you're a data user, you are also red. However you use data. I know tools use data too. Distinguishing you from and tool developers. If you're a tool developer, you're green. All right. Go ahead, Amy.
Okay. I'm Danny Kaufman. Hi, everyone. So I work at the NASA's Atmospheric Science Data Center in a variety of different capacities, sort of jack of all trade, master of none.
Not true.
What's that?
Not true that you're a master of none. Danny is brilliant.
Work on interacting with science teams, that the data producers for two of the missions at the Atmospheric Science Data Center. One is Tempo for air quality measurements from space, and then Pre-Fire, which is a mission to measure radiance from the poles. Done some development on tools things that overlap with things that Amy mentioned and Owen mentioned regarding transformation of data into more usable forms by data users. And I'd say I'm a data user myself as well, and work on developing tutorials to help other folks use it, and helping to train folks know how to get at NASA data and use it for their purposes, and just generally proponent of open science across all of that. So the open software for all of these things, and then for standards, to make sure that standards enable the findability and accessibility, interoperability of all of these data. Yeah.
Thank you, Danny. Okay, Danny can go wherever he wants. If you are a data producer, I could not find one to be a panelist for us today, but if you are somebody who produces data and publishes it for others to use, you are yellow. All right, so we're now coming to the brainstorming, the interactive part of this session. So we're going to do some brainstorming. And what I would like people to do is, depending on what group you fall into, I've got some markers here, and I've got sticky notes, and I would like you to choose a sticky note of the appropriate color. And you don't have to, I don't care, even if you're not a tool developer, if you want to write something about challenges to developing tools, that's totally fine. But what I want you to do is write down a use case of some type for NASA data, something that you want to be able to do with data that is currently really challenging, or maybe you can't even do it. You want to be able to do it and you can't, or it's super challenging. You want it to be easier. And so I would like you to write that down on an appropriately colored sticky note, and along with the challenge, like what you think is stopping you from doing that thing easily. And then we will regroup. And you can get into groups if you want to, like, do a group one on metadata stewardship, then go join Shannon. If you want to do a group one on tool development, go join Owen or Danny. Amy as sort of data user types, or because I'm afraid I don't have enough markers, so that is sort of a problem. Or just think and then wait until somebody's done with their marker. And so I'm going to just go ahead and pass stickies around. You can pass them down to. Shannon needs some blue ones. Larry wants some red ones. And some markers. Markers. I'll pick some. Oh yeah, I don't. Markers. It's going to be hard to on a little sticker with a marker. All right. So you just pass down. There's some blue bonds. Sure, give me a rush. Thank you. That's one of the AI ones. Yeah, that seems like yellow is no, I don't. Yeah. Okay, so for the next thing we're going to do is have each of the panelists come up and get with your colored sticky notes, and read them to us if you don't mind. Try. So if you can't, we'll ask the people that wrote them to read them. Okay, we're reading the notes now.
Okay, so we have a meta question about building stakeholders into the process, I think, of designing and implementing standards, right? So like, how do we make sure that when we're implementing or designing a standard, like the stakeholders are involved so we know that it will get used, is how I'm interpreting that. Yeah, and then similarly with this is too many tools, too many specialities makes it difficult and frustrating for users of various backgrounds to find and discover this data. So I think that those are kind of related, right? Like involving users and stakeholders. And then this is sort of standing on its own because it's about basically making it easier for data providers. It says data format change without ample notification. So how do we like change data formats to make that easy? This is about finding data. So finding data from I would like to access data from different sources in the same tool or application, search for variable and find that data. So finding, good ways to like find and access data. These four are all basically about coincident data. So aligning data, seeing data from different structures of data in the same interface. So cross-mission fusion, accessing coincident data, looking at lots of different data and aligning them with my vector point data and then doing my analysis. Prepping the data would take too long. Would like to be able to combine NASA data with clinical data. NASA data products need to be further modified. So it's all about, the pre-processing that basically goes into matching up data sets. These two are both about making it easier to stream data. And one thing that came up here is like not everybody has access to a cloud compute environment. So this is a big barrier to entry for actually accessing data on the cloud because it's not, you don't have you need a system basically that's in the same cloud region to access that data. And then somebody wants to search for data in a non-traditional way with voice. So I guess that's kind of in my search. View all possible options for data access is also view all possible data options for data access with guiding questions to point you to the best options. So that's another sort of search category one. And then there's one that I didn't understand. So I'd like to maybe put the person on the spot to talk about it. So this is method details in structural ontologies. Hello. I think this
structural ontology is. I know, right? Okay, so one of the things that I tend to work with field data mostly, soil surveys specifically. And one of the things that I often run into is I have to dive into the primary literature, so like the research papers, to figure out the methods that were used to observe or process the data. Because my field calls things the same thing when they're not actually using the same methodology, and sometimes that matters and sometimes it doesn't matter. So having a domain methods ontology and then using that to annotate the data sets would be so useful for me.
In my world, we have the ontology for biomedical investigations that is all like methods and instrumentation and different things like that. But I don't think there's an earth science equivalent.
Okay, good. Anything to follow up on there?
No, just hold those thoughts and we'll read all of them. And then I think after that, we'll have you guys brainstorm within the groups about what is causing these problems and what solutions you might want to propose. And then we'll use the last 15 minutes or so to present those outcomes. Does that sound good? I'm totally a fly by the seat of my pants kind of conference session organizer. So,
all right, who's going next?
I didn't nicely organize things like Amy did, so I'm going on the fly here. Yeah, so this top one here is wanting automated curation. So just minimal metadata manual work. let's see. So this one is about having an easier and potentially automated way to update our metadata archive. So really not like new metadata coming in, right? So we have this giant archive of metadata, at least within NASA. I'm sure every organization here has this that could be decades old. So how do we evolve that as standards evolve? Let's see, searching by variable for specific data sets. Yep.
I did not write that.
Okay, so this is standardized technology across agencies to missions. Sorry, and vocabulary for non-scientists. Sorry about that. I'm trying to read these. Yeah, ensuring that spatial and temporal resolution metadata is available and accurate and comparable, like that. Okay, so can we speed up metadata related? Sorry, I can't read this. Everything takes so long. Something with metadata. Yeah, lots of things with metadata take a long time. Yeah, convincing non-scientists to complete metadata. And metadata is easy to understand regardless of background. And I think this last one I scribbled in last second. I think this was just thinking of like, there is so much information. We think of metadata, I think in NASA world is like these various schemas and whatnot, this kind of what I call sidecar files, but there's so much metadata information in documents and in the science files themselves. Like, how do we actually just make sure that all of that is discoverable and consistent? Yeah, and there must be technologies to do that. Yeah, I think that's it. And if I misrepresented anything, or if anybody wants to add, please do. Okay.
All right then, green tool developers. So only a few here. There's a bit of a theme with some of them, I think. So when I wrote, at least, I'd like it to be easy to accommodate new data in my tool without custom code or custom metadata, and also for it just to be quick to do. I think we see a lot, certainly in my side of the house, that like it takes a long time sometimes, and sometimes we have to write code for like a month to make it work, and that's not great for anyone. Ensuring data transformation operations can be applied to all suitable data sets. I feel that kind of groups there. What tools do you use to curate data from disparate systems where some data have the same meaning with different names? So the example given, system A calls something a chair, system B calls it a seating apparatus, and system C calls it a stool. Like, how do we make it work with all of that?
Ontologies for everyone.
Ontologies for everyone. Changing gear a bit, data sources not releasing level 2 and 3 data in consistent intervals, making it difficult to keep tools updated. And then lastly, and it takes my prize for like the most entertaining start of the sticky note, NetCDF, NetWTF. While we, creators of tools, can use and read files of various kinds, our more general users can't. We convert NetCDF so our users can download NASA data as CSV, but this is quite a time-consuming process.
Okay. All right, this is last but not least, data producers.
Okay, so for data producers, there's 5 sticky notes. Starts off with describe my data correctly, completely, consistently, and as easy as possible. As a data producer, it is difficult to create non-quirky data files. Looking at various documents for standards is tedious. Hear that? Linking data compilation to source data with scripted workflows. I guess that's just like what they would like to do, is link data compilation to. If somebody wants to like expound upon that.
Apparently, I win the bag.
Yeah.
Another incomprehensible one. Another incomprehensible one.
Joel, stand there.
Okay.
Clearly, I need to work on my sticky note ontologies or schema. So essentially what I'm
somebody mentioned level 1, level 2, level 3 data. Well, that's really common in NASA for working satellite workflows. I'd like to see something similar in the sort of observational literature as well. So I will often do reanalysis of data that other people collect. And when I'm looking to publish that reanalysis database, I want to be able to recognize and cross-link my original sources. And I sort of kludge it together with, okay, here's a citation table with all the sources that we used. And now we've got a really long citation list. But being able to do that a little bit more easily in the repository itself, and do it across repositories would be ideal. And then using code as kind of a documentation. I'm not looking to maintain a package for a single publication, but code as documentation for workflow, that I am interested in.
Cool, thanks. So there's two more. Yeah, there's two more stickies. Just wait, there's more. Is there an API using CMR? I think the answer to that is yes. So whoever wrote this is welcome to expound if there's more to it than just a yes or no question. Yeah.
Yeah, so last year I couldn't use all the data. There was an issue with the website, I think.
Okay.
So I had to use AI to find other ways to get, because I had to ingest daily tempo data from the satellite every morning for a campaign I was working on.
Yeah.
But because Earth data was down for some reason, and I couldn't download all the level 2 files, like 800 or 1,000 files every day. So I got to know about CMR and then the issue is I don't know how to access it. It's just you read the entire JSON. I mean, AI helped me understand that, but it's not, because in an academic setting, when I do an intro course on teaching students how to access simple data sets, they always compare Copernicus with NASA. And they love the CDS API, but I don't think NASA makes it easier, except that you can click stuff and download it. But if you want to really automate scripts, I found that way last year, but that was through a lot of my own personal coding. So that's why I asked that question.
Is there a question? Could the
is there a formalized API system
easily usable?
Yeah, like Copernicus has a very formalized, easy system. So maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for describing that. Yeah. The last but not least, sticky here. I would like to know a clear set of requirements so I can make my data interoperable. Sounds like a great goal.
Thank you.
Thank you
for all those. Okay, so now we are going to quickly get into huddles according to whatever color sticky note you want to be a part of. Some of you, I think, did more than one color, so choose the one that you want to huddle with. If you are metadata, go to Shannon. If your tools, go to Owen. Danny, I'm going to let you do whatever you want. You can either represent. Will you take yellow? That would be amazing. Okay, I'll do it. I'll do yellow if you want to join Owen on tools. Okay, great. Okay, so if your tools, go to Owen. If you're a data user, go to Amy. If you're a data producer, go to Danny. And come up with solutions and get ready to report them out in the last 15 minutes of this. So we have 30 minutes for this part of the. Okay, you don't have to come up with solutions. Figure out what the barrier is, even if you don't have a solution. Like, why can I not use the CMR API, right? What's stopping you from using it in the way that you would like to, so that we can hear more about that, so that Owen can figure out how to solve that. Yeah, or whatever, like something like that. Like, try to identify the actual problem that's keeping you from doing the thing that you want to do. And if you have solutions,
maybe suggestions. It's
Okay, if you have suggestions, write them, write them down yeah. And you can do it on a sticky note, or you can get a note taker for your group or whatever. But we would love for you to report out on what you come up with at the end of this session. All right. I hope you all had great discussions in your groups. It seems like you must have, since you're all still yapping. All right. So this is the part where I'm going to ask each group to just try to give a quick summary of what you talked about, what what barriers you identified, if you have solutions. Great. We're 5 minutes past the time that I wanted to start this, so I'm going to make you be really, really quick. All right. Shannon's going to go first.
Okay, I'll try to fly through this. And anyone in the group, please help me out yeah, okay. So we'll fly through it. We were kind of doing a mix of like some solution space and barriers, but in terms of barriers with metadata, I think we're really talking about data producers like not wanting to curate like a lot of metadata, really detailed metadata, right? We had some, talked about some who were unsure or, wearing whatever way about sharing their data. So I won't get into solution space there. I think there are some some policies against AI, which I think, we talked a lot about automating and using AI for metadata curation. Let's see. Yeah, and then in terms of like AI created metadata, I think we talked about some of the issues with that and how it's probabilistic. We'll get into that world. I think sort of in our solution space, we talked about templates like YAML, really trying to simplify the content curation. So I think we talked about different levels of curation, really like, starting with a simplified set of metadata, but giving some flexibility to curate more metadata or just more detailed metadata. And this, I think, is really to support data producers and sort of the collaboration between data producers and data stewards, metadata stewards. Yeah, and I think that those different levels of curation really also support like data users as well. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I think persistent identifiers, we talked about how helpful these can be. This could be we talked about them for like geospatial features like reservoirs and whatnot, but also like ORC-IDs and RORs as well. Gosh, sorry guys if I'm... Yeah, okay. I'll just say another barrier I think is really important is just like the different languages we speak. So I think between metadata curators and then the data producers, it's like a common barrier. I think even across disciplines, we talk about curators across disciplines as well. Yeah. Metadata validators as part of our solution space. Anything else I don't have a lot of time, but metadata crew, anything else? Okay. We can move to the next.
Who wants to go next? Amy?
Hello. So the framing I had for the data users group was just basically we're going to go through each of these and talk about what is the challenge here, what are we trying to do, and what's making it challenging, and what are some potential solutions. Of course, we only got through like up to here. We skipped this one, so we didn't make it the whole way through. But I think we came up with some interesting potential solutions. So we talked a lot about ontologies. What do ontologies mean to the science community? And I think that directly related to involving users more in the process. So I think we actually came up with like a nice, neat solution to this, which is basically, which also supports the data discovery, which is, there's these programs, at least within NASA, maybe like potentially could be adopted by other agencies is like the early adopter program or these user group communities. So having these early adopter programs or user group communities, which are involved early on in the data production process, and having what we really need though is like what Amy Steiger was calling like the last mile problem, or like closing the loop. So instead of just having them learn how to access the data, but also having them inform the data structure and the metadata. So those groups would inform the structure of the data metadata, and that data metadata would hopefully, also be rich enough with these ontologies such that it could be used the way that science communities need to use them, and also more like AI enabled. So we would like to continue these discussions with Marcia Ma and Doug Newman after the session. So I think that's it.
All right, then. I didn't write things up on the wall because we're probably not allowed to do that. So it's just me trying to remember everything. Really interesting conversations, though. So there were some comments on when people are onboarding to different tools and things, there are many forms to fill in, often with duplicate information, but slightly differently expressed. And it's very hard to manually cross-reference all of that stuff. And then the question of, well, is sort of thing A that kind of sounds like thing B really the same thing? And how do you make that distinction? So yeah, it's onerous, I think, and goes back to some of the things that previously been sort of said about sort of not wanting to fill in lots of stuff. Sort of a little bit of discussion about data sources not releasing level 2, 3 data in consistent intervals. We did talk a little bit about the possibility of with at least NASA data, CMR having subscription services. I think that's actually operational. I'm kind of looking over at Tyler. I think he might remember better, or Shannon. Do you guys remember if that's live now, like subscription for new data? I feel like it is. Okay, cool. Well, I will check. Questions about whether standards actually work. Can they be implemented? Can they be tested? Does the automated tests actually test what is written in human readable language? And some sort of examples of the more recent OGC standards. I'm trying to look at my own scribbled notes. Oh, and then another sort of comment about sort of there are perhaps some gaps with potentially older formats, or I think the example was stuff that the National Weather Service uses, and that actually we may have kind of dropped support for things there by just relying on a tool that is decades old and isn't really being updated, and so it's hard to use, and I don't really know if we're doing the right thing all the time. So yeah, that's probably a really poor summary. Apologies for my chicken scratch handwriting. I think Danny, you're up.
Okay, so we were the data producers, and we didn't write on the board, so I'm just going to write while I talk. So we talked about basically the need for consistent and clear requirements that could be applied easily to help data producers and the data stewards that manage those producers. So one of the things that we talked about was having simply more tools for producers. So there's a lot of tools that are put together for data users already, and they're pretty well established, and there's a lot of development that's continuing for those, but not as many for producers, which may be exemplified by the fact that we had a very small group. Everybody wanted bigger than the other groups. We need more developers developing tools for the data producers. One of the things that came up was this analogy with linters for software development, that it would be great for data producers to be able to very quickly and easily and cheaply check their code. In the example for linters, checking code, but do the same thing for data being produced. So be able to check that data being produced fits all of these standards, and that so much work has been put into developing. So that ties together with just the broader question of just how do producers and stewards, data stewards, check compliance. It's pretty much that the process of checking compliance is not standard itself. So something like linters would make it more consistent as far as how people are checking compliance. Then another just barrier to things like, I guess this overlaps especially with the metadata, but part of the data production process is also pulling out the metadata from the data. So having those metadata reading tools be that they're thwarted by quirkiness in the data. So I don't know how to just say thwarted by quirkiness. And go quirkiness. Another thing that came up was standards that we're talking about, NASA Earth data standards. But one of the things that's most important for those standards, for when we are emphasizing the need for interoperability across data sets, is actually we don't want just NASA standards. We want standards that are outside of NASA that NASA data also conforms to make it easy for that interoperability. And then finally, came out from the particularly good example of the production of a new data set from WharfChem data, where data producers needed to actually rename all of their variables just to get it to match some of the conventions. So this was just a reminder that semantics really matter in all of these standards for all of these purposes. So those were our main highlights. Thanks.
Thank you, Danny. Right. And that was just in the nick of time. So I want to thank you all for participating in this sort of unstructured, very unstructured session. I hope that you enjoyed it. I got a lot out of it myself, so I hope you did too. And I, just as a reminder, I feel like metadata proved itself to be sort of at the center of all of these problems that we're talking about. So I know it's not sexy, but just remember to love your metadata. And all right, thanks so much for coming, everyone.